And as always, before we get started, our membership spotlight, a huge congratulations to GreenHome Institute members Lindsay Elton of EcoAchievers and Theo Butner of Pando Alliance for being the inaugural class of ResNet recognition of women pioneering in the HERS industry. According to ResNet, women have played a critical role in the growth and success of ResNet and the HERS industry. For this reason, ResNet has created a new ResNet recognition of women pioneers in the HERS industry. ResNet's goal is to recognize and celebrate the female trailblazers and provide inspiration to future leaders. You can learn more over at the link listed there on the ResNet page. We are so proud of all of our members and all the amazing female leaders in the green and home energy industry. You can go to our Find a Pro page and you can contact either Theo or Lindsay to help assist you with your green building project needs. And this is who GreenHome Institute members are. This is what GreenHome Institute members do. So can you. Sign up today at our website, greenhomeinstitute.org. All right, well, I want to welcome everyone to Navigating Home Electrification and Solar Projects. Before we get started, a shout out to our top tier sponsor, Mitsubishi Electric, who's supporting our work with air source heat pump technology, serving all different products from small home renovations to large mid-rise, multifamily, mixed-use, high-rise buildings. One thing, if you didn't know, Consumers Reports actually says the most reliable central air conditioning system isn't even an air conditioner. No, it is a heat pump, and it's Mitsubishi, among many other great brands that make these devices. So you can check that out and learn more about them and why they're highly recommended to help with your projects and heat pump needs. We also want to take a thanks to our second tier sponsor, Sun Radon. Indoor air quality is very important, especially radon, second cause of lung cancer, especially when paired with smoking. I have one of these devices in my house, and it gives me instant feedback as well as feedback over time about potential air quality issues to give me and you and your clients the information you need to make informed decisions to improve health and well-being. So thanks to Sun Radon for their sponsorship. All right, well, welcome everyone again to Navigating Home Electrification and Solar Projects. This course is brought to you by the GreenHome Institute. The GreenHome Institute is a nonprofit with a mission to empower people to make healthier and more sustainable choices in the renovation and construction of the places we live. Today, I'll be your moderator. My name is Brett Little, and I am the Education Manager here at the GreenHome Institute. As always, our courses are approved for multiple continuing education units, including Certified Green Home Professional Designation Pillar of Energy and Health, AIA Health, Welfare, and Safety, which may make it applicable to your state-based design or contractor license, and in this case, CEUS, where you can check your 5-digit code at the end of the session. Now, here's what I'll tell you. I've personally went through home electrification, heat pump, and solar work several years ago in my own personal home, and I can only wish back then I had someone to help me navigate this process. It was not easy. It was very difficult, and even for someone like me in the industry, it was hard. And so I'm super excited to introduce you here to Eric and Mike, who are with EnergySage, and they're going to talk a little bit about ways that you can be assisted to help navigate your home electrification and solar projects. So Mike, Eric, welcome. Thanks for joining us, and please take it away.
Thanks, Brett. Happy to be here. Nice to meet everybody. I think, Eric, you're going to kick it off, and then we'll get started and roll into it. It looks like we have the presentation up.
Yeah, so presentation's up. We're really excited to talk with you all today. And what I will say is, before we do some introductions, I'll introduce myself. But with that, want to just set proper guidelines as well. Please, we want to make sure that this is a conversation. It's not us just talking at you. Please put your questions into the chat, into the Q&A. We'd be happy to answer them as we go throughout the presentation. If you want to save it to the end, you can do that as well. But a little bit about myself. I've been with EnergySage for roughly 2.5 years. I run the business development team on the installer side of things. Mike is working on the partnership side of things. We are a marketplace. Mike will talk about that in a little bit later, but I am from New York. I talk very fast, so I will slow down my pace. But if you need me to repeat something, if you need me to slow down, please let me know. I will happily do that. And Mike, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Eric. As Eric mentioned to you all, I'm the Senior Business Development Manager on the partnership side of things at EnergySage. I'll talk a little bit more about that when I give kind of an overview of who EnergySage is and what we do. But namely, I work with partner with utilities, nonprofits, state agencies, local governments, you name it. Anybody that has an audience that we can help educate and empower them to make a more educated decision when they're looking to go solar or get a heat pump or whatever it may be with home electrification. I've been with EnergySage for about 1.5 years now. Was previously working for an energy storage provider, software provider. Worked for the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center prior to that, namely on net zero grid programming, essentially trying to get more energy storage out onto the grid in Massachusetts. And before that was a residential solar consultant. So I've been in the industry for about 10 years, but with EnergySage for about 1.5 years. All right, so I'm going to talk about who EnergySage is, what we're all about, why we're here today, speaking with you all. Eric, if you want to go to the next slide. There we go, perfect. So EnergySage is an educational platform and marketplace for home energy shoppers to learn about various clean energy products they can use at home. That's us at its core. We started about a decade ago with support from the Department of Energy through their Sunshot Initiative, with the mission of empowering people to make smarter energy decisions through simplicity, transparency, and choice. And we do this by providing free, objective educational content, tools, resources, including competitive marketplaces, where shoppers can compare standardized quotes from pre-qualified installers for free. As Brett was mentioning too, back then when EnergySage was first started, and even still to this day, we recognized really that the solar process can be intimidating, overwhelming, confusing for most people. And what EnergySage wanted to do was really set out to change that. Most people are paying their electric bills each month and are done with it. They're like, great, this is over and done with, don't need to worry about it. But now they're trying to make a $20,000 to $30,000 decision in going solar without really even knowing the difference between what is a kilowatt and kilowatt hour. And so that's where EnergySage plugs in, is meeting people wherever they're at on their journey to help them navigate this process. We got our start with solar, but are since expanding into other home electrification types of products and services, namely the heat pump marketplace, community solar marketplace, and additional EV charging, smart home devices are on the roadmap in the future. And like I said, meeting people wherever they're at with either wanting to research solar and get more caught up to speed on it. And that's kind of where their kind of bread and butter is, and just understanding, is this something that I want to do? Or for the folks that are ready to start getting quotes and get them from reputable installers that service their geographic area. So we're currently in 41 states plus DC. We have a network of about 500 installers across each of our marketplaces that utilize, like I said, the rooftop solar and storage marketplace, our community solar marketplace, and heat pump marketplace. We've become the #1 highest trafficked website with about 10 million unique site visitors each year that are accessing those free, really objective educational resources. We've served over the last little over a decade now about 1 million shoppers, and that is equated to about $1 billion in the value of solar systems on our marketplace. I think the big highlight too is that we were recently acquired by Schneider Electric, of course, one of the most sustainable companies in the world, back in 2022. So early 2022, we were acquired by them. And what our vision with them is, like I said before, to really develop additional marketplaces to be that one-stop shop, one-stop solution for people that are looking to access educational, objective, free resources on all things home electrification, and then have the opportunity to, if they're interested in doing so, to get quotes from reputable installers. In addition to people finding EnergySage, namely through like Google search results and SEO, we have partnerships with other entities that you see like at the bottom, Desire, SIA, Intuit, to help educate their audiences on all things home electrification. So this is really where my role plugs in at EnergySage, is to develop these types of partnerships to help educate whoever their audience is, whether it's customers, constituents, residents, and people just generally trying to get more information about solar. Our main goal, main mission at EnergySage is to make home electrification purchasing journey as simple as booking a flight online, similar to like what Kayak and Expedia has done in past. So that's what we're looking to do in the clean energy industry. One quick note before I hand it over to Eric, we are coming out with a home electrification survey, and we would love to have your teams participate if you're a contractor that services solar, HVAC, energy efficiency, electric vehicle charging, you name it, anything within the home electrification industry. If that's something that you are doing, we would love your participation in the survey. I will drop it in the chat here. We'll send it out after the presentation. And then just for the folks that haven't been able to fill it out in the time that we're looking to over the next couple of weeks, we do constantly share different reports and insights, and we would love your participation in those future ones as well. So I'll drop it in the chat now, but just know that we're here as a resource to help with those types of insights and data too. Eric, I will pass it over to you now.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike. We already have some questions in the Q&A as well, and would love to answer them before we dive into anything else. One of the questions is
Eric, let's go ahead and keep moving forward, and we'll get to those questions later. So thanks. Yeah. And I'll bring those up as they come up. So thank you.
Cool. We can do that. So talking about the electrification opportunity, I see that there's a ton of different people from different backgrounds, from different areas within the country. Also, I saw someone from Italy joining. Welcome. Nice to have you on this. Really excited to have these conversations with you all and really hear your insights and what you all are seeing. So to give you some more context into what Mike was saying is EnergySage started with the name EnergySage for a reason. We started in solar. We've been in solar for 10 years. We are now expanding into electrification products, batteries, virtual power plants, or demand response times with smart panels, EVs, EV chargers, heat pumps, right? So many different areas that go into electrification that we started with this future vision. Our founder, Vikram, really came back from a conference and wrote the idea down on a napkin, which is just really funny to think of, as you always hear the joke is the idea starts with on a bar table and on a napkin, but that's how EnergySage started. We have a passion to electrify, and that we truly believe that it is an opportunity, but also we believe that it is the future, right? So we're going to go into a lot of that. The way EnergySage has started it is, and also where we are, is we collect all of this information. So we are a two-sided marketplace. So a homeowner comes on and registers on EnergySage to receive multiple quotes from different installers that me and my team, we vet the installers before they come on and submit those proposals, but then also submit a preliminary proposal before even talking to the homeowner. So you come on and you register, you're able to see what the best option is for you, while also installers putting their best foot forward and giving you a preliminary proposal, showing you all the equipment, the pricing, financing, which allows us to collect all of these data points. We have over 1 million data set points from the last 10 years from different installers, different homeowners from different regions to really show what's happening in the industry and where it's going and where it's trending. And what we see is there is a huge opportunity in electrification. And talking a little bit more about that and really engaging in consumer interest. I'm going to stay on this slide for a little bit, and if you all have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or the Q&A, but really want to go bullet by bullet here, as we don't have a lot of slides, so want to spend some time talking on them because I do think that they're extremely important to go over. Again, this is not just data that we're collecting within EnergySage. We've cited our sources here, as it's not everyone seeing it, right? 69% of Americans believe the US should prioritize renewables and take steps to become carbon neutral by 2050. That is a big deal. That is a lot of the population within the United States, right? People believe in electrification. Now, what comes into it is when people believe in electrification, start getting heat pumps, start getting EV chargers, what ends up happening is utility rates increase because the grid can't sustain it. And what becomes a solution is solar and storage to help with that. What used to be 10 years ago, where solar was the only entryway into electrification, it's now changed, right? And you can see that below. But also 86% of US adults support the expansion of more solar. People are engaged, people are interested in it, they see the benefit, right? They see that they can put it on their roof or join a community solar project, right? Or have a lease on their roof and not actually own it, but still decrease their utility rate by 20-30%. Now, the interesting thing, and I want to hone in on this, 67% are also interested in battery storage, as well as, you know, that there are some states that are changing their policies with net metering. What used to be one-to-one net metering in California has now changed, that there is more of an incentive to have batteries on top of your solar system, right? So they're all tied together. Instead of just getting solar and having one-to-one net metering, right now it's changing. North Carolina just changed their policy as well. What we're going to see is utilities are going to follow suit. California is the leading indicator of what's happening in the rest of the country. So what happened in California in April is probably going to follow suit. I don't want to talk in absolutes. My assumption and my hypothesis is that that will follow suit with all the other utilities that will come into Texas, Florida, Massachusetts. I saw someone from Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, Wisconsin. All those utilities will follow suit with the net metering policies and start to push storage. Brett, I see that you have a question. What you got?
Oh, and I was waving because you said Michigan, so I had to wave. But no, so the question on the battery side, interestingly enough, is this because people maybe are recognizing, and I have to state this in an event like this because there's still so many people who don't know that it's important to know that, you know, I'm going to be a little harsh here, but solar is just a piece of garbage on your roof when the grid goes down. And the reason for that is because you have to protect the utility worker, right? You can't send electricity back and shock them. They already have enough stress in their lives, right? They don't want that stress. So given that, we know that you need storage, right, to keep that solar going during outages. So are you seeing in your surveys any reasoning? Does it have to do with people maybe recognizing their solar isn't any good, extreme weather, time of use programs? Like, are you seeing anything like behind those numbers at all?
Yeah, Brett, that's a really good question. And we'll dive into that a little bit later into storage as a whole, is because that is a genuine interest from a lot of people. And honestly, not a lot of people know what goes into storage, right? And the benefits, but also the costs associated with it. Storage is expensive, right? We understand that. Solar, the price is going down, right? Solar's been in the space for 10 plus years, right? We have people that have solar installs from the 1980s on their roof, right? Batteries are newer and are new to the space, and we're figuring out more and more efficiencies. There's more and more. I work a lot with manufacturers. There are more battery manufacturers that have entered into the space this year and last year than we've seen on the solar module level or the inverter level. And that is only going to grow. And what these batteries are starting to do is starting to do whole home electrification, right? So do virtual power plants and demand response, that all of a sudden you get battery, you get a smart panel with a hybrid inverter that when your system goes out, it does load management for you, right? So not everything's going off and because if all of your loads go on at the same time for that battery backup, it's going to drain your battery right away, right? That's me going down a rabbit hole. We will talk more and more about storage as we go on. And I really want to hone in on these last 4 bullet points, right? 33% annual growth in virtual power plants market. That is really important. People are looking for smart panels. They're looking to figure out their load and demand response, to figure out how to really create energy efficiencies in their home, right? Because all of a sudden, if your AC and refrigerator kick in at the same time, your utility bill is going to spike up for that 5 minutes. It'll probably be more expensive than the next 2 or 3 hours, right? So it's all load management comes into energy efficiencies as well. Now, heat pumps and EV are really interesting, right? One, heat pumps, people are still trying to understand what the name heat pumps actually means, as it is a difficult concept to understand, but it is growing. And a lot of that is because of the Inflation Reduction Act. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but I really want to talk about is that increase in EV sales in 2022 over 2021, right? In 2022, there were 900,000 EV installs in the US. There was only 600,000 solar installs in the US in 2022. There's a hockey stick curve that's going up with EV installs. It's projected to be at 1.5 million for 2023, and we're on track for that. It's probably going to be up to 2 million in 2024. And again, that is all part of electrification and what's going into that space. Brett, it looks like you have a question.
Yeah, so when you say EV installs, just to be clear, you're talking about the car chargers, not EV purchases. Am I hearing that right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
So people are also prepping for buying an EV, right? So what a lot of solar installers will end up doing is they'll sell the solar system and storage and say, hey, if you're getting solar and storage, you might as well get an EV charger and we'll put it on there for free. Right. And so you can prep for it. So there's a big incentive for people to start getting EVs, but also the cost of EVs are going down. Tesla just dropped their prices to be more competitive.
Yeah.
Other EV car manufacturers are starting to do the same thing. That's only going to.
And maybe you're going to get into this, but when you're searching for a solar installer, does it differentiate, those who have the EV service? And maybe even the bi-directional. There was a question here about bi-directional. This is going really deep, right? Like, hey, I want a solar installer who does bi-directional EV installs. I know that's probably 1 out of 5,000 right now. I think it sounds like it'll all change next year. But I mean, do you get that kind of granular when people come to look?
Totally. So when again, it comes down to what the homeowner is looking for. So we have all different types of installers that are partnered with us. We have roughly 400 plus installers that are actively quoting throughout the country in those 41 states. And with that, right, we have national, we have regional, and we have local installers. Some of the national installers have figured out how to do certain types of electrification. Some of the local installers that service just Cook County in Illinois are able to do everything. They're able to do the bidirectional. Battery storage is complicated. It's not easy. Solar has become easy and it's become efficient to put the panels on, plug and play, hook it up to the net meter, to the metering, and you're good to go, right? You start to include battery storage, you start to do bidirectional, starting to add inverters on there, right? To make sure that load management is corrected. Like, it becomes way more technical. And we have the installers for that, right? But they're not everywhere. Again, but everyone's pushing towards electrification. And because of that, companies have to follow suit, right? They have to be trained in order to do that. For the Ford Lightning, for example, that when the grid goes down, to be able to have bi-directional with the battery, but also plug in with the solar, there's a lot of moving pieces there, but people have been able to figure that out. And it's been really cool to see the efficiencies and how the industry has adapted. And it's going to continue to adapt and grow as time goes on. And my favorite data point is the last one. 98% of solar customers are highly likely to buy an additional product. Right? People aren't just coming to buy solar anymore. They're coming to buy other products. We see that in our consumer research survey that we do every year, in our intel reports, what our installers are seeing from homeowners that they're talking to. That has become the trend, right? And again, this just proves what we're talking about a little bit more. Is consumers are interested in 4 reasons that we're seeing. All of them tie together. I mean, extreme climate and weather events. We see what's happening down in Florida with the hurricane. I really forget the name. I know it starts with an I, but that's coming, right? And what happened with the hurricane last year in Florida, Irene, it might have been. Anyways, what happened there was one city that had battery storage backup and they were okay. They didn't lose power. They were okay. And that is becoming more and more of a trend as more extreme climate and weather events happen. But what that also does is changes someone's mindset. All of a sudden you were affected by it. You lost power for 2 weeks. You're going to look for different ways to back your home up, right? So you have heat, you have AC, depending on the climate that you're in, right? But also rising energy prices across the country. I live in national grid territory on the Northeast. We are in Boston. I'm a New Yorker who lives in Boston, so no one really likes me here, but that's okay. I'm a Yankees and Giants fan, and I'm still been living with that for the last 4 years. But my utility bill increased by 62% last year. That is a big hike. That is going to continue to happen across the board. But we have to make sure that we understand that there is a genuine interest in sustainability. People see, because of the extreme climate and weather events, because we see coal plants shutting down and rising energy prices across the country, people are looking for different ways to be sustainable, to help the planet become a better place. We have to understand that, yeah, there are financial benefits to going solar, to getting storage, to getting an EV, to getting heat pumps, but there's a genuine interest in sustainability as well. All right, now we go into the finance side of things. Money is the primary motivator here. We all know it. We all understand it. that money is the driving force in what makes people make these educated decisions in going solar, right? But also going and getting storage, heat pumps, electric vehicles. And a lot of that comes into education, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But I want to make sure that we're not forgetting the other motivators is resiliency. That is a huge factor, but also sustainability, comfort and control, right? People who have the money to be able to have the comfort and control are looking to more electrification products, right? But we have to make sure that we understand the sustainability aspect. That is why people that's why people started putting solar on the roof back in the 80s and the 90s. That's why I got into this industry. That's why Mike has been in this industry. That's why Brett is here. We all believe in what we're doing. We believe in the impact that it has in the country, in the world as a whole. And we are all looking to push electrification because we are under the belief that it is better for the environment and it will be better for everyone who lives on this earth for generations to come. I know that's all getting like warm and fuzzy, but it's true. And we need to make sure that that is why people understand that that is truly a primary motivator for a lot of people going solar. I mean, we talk with our solar installers every day that we need to make sure that they understand that when they're talking to homeowners, they're talking to business owners, that they understand that a lot of it, yes, money drives the ultimate decision, but what's going to make push someone over that edge to go solar is the resiliency, the sustainability, the comfort and control, why that actually matters to someone. And our installers are starting to recognize that more and more. It's not just saying, look how much money you'll save, right? It's look how much money you'll save and look at the impact that you'll make. Those go hand in hand, and those are driving factors throughout the space. But want to talk about storage. Storage prices, it is getting expensive, and we get it. Again, the hypothesis and the theory is that it will go up and then will go back down. As more and more competitors enter into the manufacturing world of storage, those prices have to drop, right? But there is, what we've also seen was a shift in the industry, right? Last year, as we were in the pandemic, there were a lot of supply constraints. This year, there are not as many supply constraints. People are looking to get their products out, right? And they're cutting down their cost per watt. We've seen different module or solar PV module manufacturers drop their prices by 50% to get their products out, right? Because there's an oversupply and oversaturation of what's happening in the space. And we're going to see that on the storage side as well. But again, you can see how many other people have entered into the market from the second half of 2020 to where we are in the first half of the year in 2023, right? It was LG, Tesla, and Enphase. That is not the case anymore. More and more players are entering into the space, and we're going to see that for heat pumps, right? I saw you talk about Mitsubishi earlier, Brett. We've had conversations with them, but there are other different heat pump manufacturers that are now entering into the space, right? There's other EV manufacturers that are entering into the space. Virtual power plants, smart panels, right? Smart home devices. Everyone's trying to figure out where their niche is, but also how they can figure out where the market is trending and how they can get behind it. So again, my assumption and prediction is for the second half of 2023, we're going to see more installers and less people have a majority of the market share on the storage side, and that's going to follow suit with other areas as well. But I do want to make sure that we talk about the IRA and what's going on here. It ties into two things. Is one, there has been more and more of an interest since the Inflation Reduction Act came out and what goes on with it, and the tax credits, the incentives that go with it for heat pumps, for EVs, for solar as a whole, right? Bumping up to 30% is awesome. You go on the commercial industrial side, right? You can get up to 70% reduced from your overall costs. If you're a farm, it can go up to 90%, right? Where you're really only paying 10%. There are so many different incentives that are pushing sustainability and electrification as a whole that what comes down to it is very much is the education piece, right? And the graph on the right scares me. And the reason why it scares me is because only 56% of the people that we have surveyed are familiar with the clean energy incentives in the IRA. Imagine if that number was 100. Imagine if people actually fully understood all the different incentives that go into it and why it's tied. There's an education gap as a whole. But Brett, I saw you come on screen. What questions do you have?
I want to say 56 sounds amazing. I think 1 out of 30 people I talk to even know the IRA exists. So maybe it's the certain people you're speaking with, given who you are. But so I just wanted to say, I'm looking at it optimistically, but just I wanted to share that. So
totally. And to your point, right, it comes down to where EnergySage positions ourselves in the industry, right? We are trying to educate people, educate solar installers, educate contractors, educate manufacturers, but more importantly, educate homeowners and business owners on what's going on in the space, right? As I mentioned earlier, we collect all of these data points, but also we're keeping up with industry trends. We have over 1,000+ articles of original content talking about electrification, talking about the Inflation Reduction Act, talking about state-by-state incentives and what goes into that. So, Brett, that's why I think that 56% is a little bit higher of what we're tracking on the EnergySage side of things, is because we're very much trying to educate these homeowners, educate business owners, educate everyone who's entering into the space. If they come to EnergySage, they understand the different incentives that are tied to the products that they're looking for, right? And again, as we expand, right now we're doing solar and storage and heat pumps, right? But we'll get into EVs, we'll get into virtual power plants, right? We'll get into other smart home devices to really be able to help drive all the education side of things, right? But we write about new content, different products that are coming out. We're writing about all of that, really trying. Our main goal, honestly, the main reason why we got that grant from the DOE to start is because of the education. We are an unbiased source we don't show preferential treatment to manufacturers, right? But we also don't show preferential treatment to our solar installers, right? We want to make sure it is an equal level playing field. And that was part of when Schneider acquired us, right? Is making it very loud and clear that we will not show preferential treatment to Schneider or other manufacturers, right? Because the moment we lose our autonomy, we lose who EnergySage is in the space. We want to be that unbiased source of truth, educating people on equipment, but also what's going on in the Inflation Reduction Act, what's going on in the space, right? So again, that last bullet point is those familiar with the incentive are much more likely to express interest in electrification products as a whole. All right, we're going to keep driving here. I know I say this is my favorite slide. My favorite slide is coming up, but I very much really appreciate what the data points we have here. And I want to highlight a few things, right? One, lack of trusted resources. That's been hurting the space for years. Where I got a haircut a week ago and I was talking to my barber, and this story has a purpose, I promise, so bear with me, right? But he was talking to me, he was like, oh, what industry are you in? What do you do? I was talking about EnergySage, and he was like, oh, I don't trust solar installers. I said, why? He's like, because they knock on my door every week telling me that I need to go solar and they need to tell me why. And he's like, and they don't stop. How is he supposed to trust someone who just continues to knock on his door and not listen to him? So we talked about EnergySage, went logged on, shot me a text later saying, hey, I really appreciate what you're doing. I'm not going solar because I'm old and I don't want to do it, but I really appreciate what you're doing in the space, right? But that just goes to show like there's a lack of trusted resources in the space. It is the Wild West, and people are trying to figure out, one, how to profit from it, but also how to gain from it as a whole. And what EnergySage, again, this is not me trying to do a sales pitch. This is me trying to position of why EnergySage is in the space as a whole, is to be that trusted resource, to be that unbiased source of truth of saying, look, we don't care if you go solar with us or without us. We want to educate you. We want to make sure that you're making the right decision for you, for your family, for your business, and for your home, right? But what we found is 76% of solar shoppers look to Google as decision-making resources, while 61% rely on online blogs. People are doing their research. People are trying to do their research, and they have a difficult time assessing the price. right? Because they have to build out their models. They have to build out, okay, why are these prices different, right? Where someone might offer a lease while some person might just show a cash purchase. Well, someone might just show a financing option with a high interest rate because they have a low FICO score, right? It's a huge factor in why people are making decisions, but they need to be educated on it. Where if you look on the slide, the graph on the right, is the decision-making factors is really three things: price, quality, and reviews. Where I will say Amazon has changed the game with reviews. People look at reviews when you buy socks. You better be looking at reviews when you're going solar, or you're getting a heat pump, or you're getting EVs on your, you're buying an EV charger, right? That matters. Reviews matter, especially what people are saying about that product. That helps with people assessing the price, but also quality, right? We partnered with NREL, the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. They're based out in Colorado. And what we did with that partnership was we broke down spec sheets of every equipment of saying, hey, this is how you rate the equipment. And this is the points that you should be looking for to make it digestible for someone who's comparing quotes to see, oh, that efficiency in that module is way better than the efficiency in that module. And that's why the prices are different, right? Price and quality and reviews are a huge driving factor, right? What's not really a factor at all is brand, promotion, aesthetics, referrals, right? Those aren't really factors. People care about the meat of the product and what's actually going on, right? Referrals definitely help, don't get me wrong. Aesthetics and promotion of brand definitely help, but really what comes down to it is it's quality, it's price, it's reviews. And the challenge to determine quality, right? 95% of solar shoppers say equipment quality is extremely important. Well, 65% say that they rely on reviews to gauge the quality, right? It goes back to what I was saying earlier, is quality matters. People are looking to go, again, we can use a car analogy. If you're going to buy a car, right? Majority of the people are going to a dealership and are buying new cars or slightly used cars. They're not going to a used car lot. Not all the time, right? Again, it depends on the shopper of what's going on, but that correlates over to what people are looking for. This is a long-term investment with 25, 30-year warranties. People are looking to really invest in their home, increase the value in their home while decrease their utility bills and ultimately save money over time. I mean, you look, most states' average payback period for going solar is going to be roughly around 7 to 9 years, maybe 11 or 12 in some states. But if you're staying in your home for 20 years or longer, this is a worthwhile investment, right? That you need high quality, good equipment moving forward. Before I go to the next slide, Brett, do you have a question?
Well, yeah, it was, featuring, of course, the people who can help you is important, but what about the case studies of people who've had successful projects? Are those all things that are important? I know that, I mean, it's interesting to look at your list there, because my understanding is the way solar has sold, at least anecdotally, is by, you see it on your neighbor's house, right? And some of us live in areas where our neighbors can't see us, or not everyone can see your house, right? Only like maybe 10 people can see it. So I think case studies, videos, all that stuff, like our friends at the National ACSC's solar tour who are doing, and that one's coming up, are folks who are actually getting this work done being highlighted to illustrate what's being done?
Yeah, and I mean, Brett, I think that ties in with reviews personally,
Okay.
right? Right, when you break that down, is someone doing a case study is really talking about how that whole process went, right? That I think it could tie in, it's a hybrid between reviews and promotions, right? But also referrals like that, but that all ties into really reviews of someone actually pushing that product. Does that make sense?
It does. I mean, reviews are reviewing the work, but then how much does it get into the detail of the actual individual and why they did what they did? I think that's more of where the question was coming from. So yeah. So.
Yeah, no, it's still a great point. And I'm not trying to discredit referrals, aesthetics, promotions, or brand, right? That help people make those important decisions. I mean, you see here that it's still somewhat important, right? But it is not the driving factor, right? If someone brings a case study of saying, hey, this is what's happening in the space, that definitely helps, right? But it's not going to be the driving factor. They might have a great case study, but they might be too expensive with low quality equipment and minimal reviews, that if they have a good case study, that's not going to be the decision maker in the grand scheme of things. But moving on is purchasing considerations, right? Cost is the biggest barrier. Why did you decide not to invest in all of it? Is I can't afford it. It's more expensive than I expected, and I don't think the investment is worth the cost. Again, as we continue to educate shoppers and educate homeowners and business owners and installers and manufacturers of what's going on into it, my goal and EnergySage's goal is to limit what's happening on the light blue all the way on the right. Is I don't think the investment is worth the cost. Is people need to understand of why they're investing in it, why they're interested, the financial benefits, the resiliency benefits, the sustainability benefits, the comfort benefits that go into it, to make it actually seem like, oh yeah, that actually is probably worth the cost, right? Once people understand the different incentives of what goes on in the space, I mean, you go and get a heat pump in Massachusetts. I mean, Mike knows this, but with Mass Saves in their program, really it makes sense to get a heat pump. And ultimately, it saves you money in the grand scheme of things, right? Of what goes over with that switch from oil to electric. But again, it's very much changing that mindset into, okay, if you can't afford it, that's okay, right? But we want to make sure that we're driving down that percentage of, I don't think the investment is worth the cost. And that's really what EnergySage is trying to do by educating the shoppers in the space. But there are now multiple entry points into the electrification journey, right? Smart thermostats is a huge one. Electric vehicles, energy efficiency audits, solar panel systems, all others of what goes into it, right? You can see over here, most common entry points of what we're seeing is very much what we showed over there, but also, efficiency audits and retrofits are huge in the space as well. And what used to be solar is the only entry point into electrification has now changed, right? With Google Nest and their smart thermostats coming out and other smart thermostats, everything that goes on into that, there are now totally different entry points of what goes into the space. And this is, again, I promise you, this is by far my favorite slide, showing what it used to be was top solar to then storage, right? But that has totally changed. Heat pumps and energy efficiencies then goes to solar and storage, right? We can create a whole web of what goes on here, right? So someone may get a heat pump, right? They then get solar and storage, but add more panels for a larger offset to then get an EV in the future, right? There's so many different moving pieces now that changes all different entry points in everyone's electrification journey. There's not one cookie cutter way to electrify their home, and there's not just one solution. And I want to make sure that is very much understood here, and people are excited about that, right? Is one, solar might not be the answer for your home. It might not make sense for the state that you're in, right? I know for someone that was saying that if EnergySage was open in Indiana, right? The incentives in Indiana probably aren't the best, right? But it might make sense to get a heat pump if the utility rates are pretty cheap, or get an EV before you even get solar, to see, okay, how does that increase my utility rates? How does that increase my utility bills? How does that tie into everything?
Well, and maybe you're going to get into this, so let me know if I'm jumping ahead. It seems like a perfect segue. But community solar, can people do that? Tell us about that. Where do you all get involved with those opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, we're extremely involved with community solar. I know Mike deals with it more than I do. So Mike, I'm gonna put you on the spot here. Do you want to talk a little bit about community solar and what EnergySage is doing with it?
Yeah, absolutely. And great question, Brett. We're currently in 11 states plus DC on the EnergySage marketplace. And what that essentially does is help consumers compare their options between developers, really seeing like, how much more am I going to save if I subscribe to a community solar project with this developer versus this one. The community solar in general is perfect for homeowners that don't want to go with rooftop solar or can't. So if you have too much tree shading, or if you have too many dormers or skylights on your roof where it restricts how many panels can go on your roof, community solar is that great alternative option. Albeit you're only going to save about 5 to 20% on community solar compared to potentially offsetting your entire electric bill with rooftop solar. So there's pros and cons of both of them in that respect. But community solar also opens the door for renters. For the last 10 years or so, when solar was really coming on, rooftop solar was really becoming more common. We were telling people that you can't go solar if you're a renter. And now community solar policy has caught up a little bit. And now many states are able to offer that to renters to subscribe to community solar projects and save 5 to 20% on their electric bill annually. So it's a great alternative to rooftop solar in that respect.
Yeah. You know, and I happen to live in a state where community solar power is it's not illegal per se, but it's not mentioned, and therefore when it's not in the law, it's not legal. I mean, that's the sad reality. It's not the reverse for whatever reason, but we are fixing that. We have some legislation coming through. I just shared that, and maybe you all can take that and share it with your state too. But in the meantime, I look at these programs that offer community solar, and I'm curious why they would leave me out, even though my state doesn't adopt it, because I am on the MISO grid. And I know, for example, Minnesota's on the MISO grid, and they have awesome community solar laws. And even some of the utilities just north of me or south of me, who are local utilities, have community solar. Like, just because my utility doesn't offer it, why can't I partner with one of these types of programs to get it from someone else on my grid? Do you have any explanation as to why it doesn't work that way?
Yeah, it's mainly going to come down to policy. Policy is what's going to drive more developers that install those community solar projects in your area where they're not owned by the investor-owned utility or any other type of utility. If developers can't make it pencil, then they're not going to come into the state. And where does that drive? That goes back to policy. So once policy catches up to where really this type of programming is, we'll definitely see more community solar projects open up, because developers are going to say, hey, yeah, we could make this pencil out and allow people to save that 5 to 20%. And when I say 5 to 20%, it's heavily dependent on where you're located throughout the US, in what that savings could look like. So it's very geographic based on how much savings you can get with community solar.
And do you know, do people who are trying to, go zero carbon or claim a zero carbon standard, do you know typically when they're signing up for community solar, are they claiming the rights to those renewable energy credits?
I don't know off the top of my head. It's a good question. I could take back to our team. Our director of insights would have that information, and then we can absolutely follow up with that too. But yeah, I don't want to lead anybody down the wrong track and kind of work my way through it if I don't know the answer for sure.
Yeah, well, thanks for taking that little side journey. As you all pointed out, sometimes it's just not possible to do solar. So thank you.
Yeah, and I saw a couple of people make some comments about wind in the chat. So I do want to address that, as wind is also a solution. It's not something that EnergySage is currently showing at the moment. We are showing solar and storage and what goes in with that. Wind is growing as well. It's part of the renewable electrification journey for a lot of people, whereas some people might have a lot of land, and instead of putting solar arrays, want to put some wind farms up there. And that is totally a solution as well. I don't want to discredit what's happening on the wind side of things. So want to address that, but EnergySage right now we're working very much on the solar storage and in-home electrification journey.
And I think, Eric, can you clarify when you say solar, because a lot of other people might be thinking solar hot water. As far as I can tell, that's really a technology that's on its way out. Are you seeing a lot of installers doing that, coming back to that?
No, not really. We're seeing that start to fade away a little bit more. Really just talking about solar panels on top of the roof, and not solar hot water heaters. That had some popularity a few years back, but it has very much shifted away as a whole.
Thank you.
Yeah. And want to show, as we're seeing this shift, installers are shifting with it, right? And what they're doing, what they're offering is energy storage, electric vehicle charging, right? But they're also doing operations and maintenance as well on the far right. That's really important, as again, there were 600,000 installs that happened last year for solar for solar panels on top of the roof, what's going to happen is if the system fails, there needs to be some operations and maintenance, right? I mean, we all saw what happened with Pink Energy last year in the Midwest when they shut down, right? A lot of installers started picking up operations and maintenance to help homeowners and business owners continue to have solar and have solar efficiencies for their home, right? We do see less and less installers getting into HVAC as it's just a little bit more complicated, and less people getting into roofing. Now, there's a couple other reasons behind that, right? One is those are two very saturated markets already that have been in the industry for a while and have been around, right? So they are hard industries to get into to start, that everyone needs a new roof at some point. Everyone needs an HVAC contractor, right? They're hard industries to get into, and we very much want to help installers get into those industries if they're interested and provide the material. I know that we are running short on time. As much as I am a New Yorker, I talk a lot too. I can't help it. This is the last slide, and then would love to answer and field any questions. But again, in summary, there's an opportunity to grow electrification businesses, and there's an opportunity to electrify their home, right? And EnergySage provides a couple of solutions here, right? Is we simplify a lot of the decision making, right? We allow homeowners and business owners to compare and see what the best option is. We have a team of energy advisors that are an unbiased source that work with each homeowner, business owner, helping them on their electrification journey to really just advise them and see what the best option is for them. But there's growing competition, right? There's similar growth strategies. Everyone's trying, there's different emerging competitors, but there is no market leader yet, right? There is no one that is leading the industry in electrification. Everyone's trying to figure out how that ties together, what goes into it, and how people are able to grow, but there is no market leader. I'd like to call it the Wild West at the moment, where people are trying to figure out how to become the market leader. Like you see the Teslas or the Sunruns of the world, or Elephant Energy in the HVAC side of things, but you also see Ford partnering with different solar companies. Everyone's trying to figure out different partnerships to be able to be that market leader, to be able to set the tone for what's happening for years to come, for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years down the road. And it's a really fun time to watch this electrification process happen and see which companies are going to emerge as time goes on. So wanted to thank you all. Seriously, thank you all for your time and your participation. But want to take a step back and answer any questions that you all might have. And Brett, if you want to field them, that would be great. And Mike and I can answer them.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Eric and Mike. Yeah, we're going to stick around and take some questions real quick. Before we get to those questions, again, as a reminder, the answer is usually yes. You may rewatch this session, share it on social media, catch something you might have missed by going to our YouTube channel, and you'll see it there in the next couple days, or you can click subscribe and get an instant update when it is available. Now, for those of you watching this in the future, not right now, but on demand, head over to our Thinkific channel, USGBC channel, or whatever channel you might be watching this on, and take your quiz with an 80% passing rate. You will receive your Con Ed certificate. For those of you live here today, listen up. If you've been here for this entire time and you're appropriately logged into Zoom with the name you want printed on your Zoom account, on your certificate, check your spam in the next couple days for certs@gutenbergcerts.com, and you will receive your certificate. Those questions are rolling in. We're going to get to some of those questions. But before we do, a huge thanks to our board of directors, all of our volunteers, our executive director, Jose Reyna, and our nearly 300 members, as well as our top tier sponsors who are here to help you electrify with their products, including Rheem and Mitsubishi for heating water, heating the air, and all of our other sponsors who have amazing technologies to help you achieve your sustainable goals. There are a lot of questions, Mike and Eric, and we're not going to be able to get to all of them right now. Some of them are highly technical questions, so I think I would assume perhaps those very highly technical questions, if I may, are really good for folks to get in and start reaching out to your contractor and start asking those questions. I mean, is there an opportunity for people to start getting some of their questions answered before they and make any kind of financial agreements or engagements? I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, so talking a little bit about the journey for someone who registers on EnergySage is you don't have to put your phone number on there if you don't want to. You can register, receive multiple quotes, and talk to an energy advisor who works at EnergySage to walk you through that whole process, provide you information to then see if that's the right fit for you. And honestly, if it's not, and it's not the right time, that's okay, right? That's okay if it's not the right time. We want to make sure that you understand the benefits of going solar before you even make a decision, that you're educated and you're making a clear, conscious decision as well. And just as an adder there, Brett, is we don't work with sales and marketing companies. We work with people that are overseeing contracts, warranties, have industry experience, right, and are doing right and have a customer first approach, which is one of our core values. And we want to make sure that that is represented to everyone else in the space as well.
What about new construction projects? Are a lot of the folks that you can engage, with those of you work with, get pulled in from a new construction, maybe a builder? I talk to builders all the time. I had to help a builder set up, their time of use programming on their air source heat pump system the other day, right? The contractor didn't do it. I had to do it, right? It was one of our members who was building green. It's like, that's not my job, but I was happy to do it because that's like fun for me. But so like, what about someone like a builder who might reach out, maybe not a homeowner? Hey, we're helping our clients. I'm just trying to build a tight shell here, but I need the solar and HVAC guys to show up. And also on that note, we find that a lot of these solar people they're not ready for new construction. And there's a miscommunication between the building team and the solar team. And we've seen some things go wrong. So long story short is it set up in a way to sort of identify people who can assist in new construction, or is this primarily just for existing households?
So it's primarily for existing households. That's how we are set up at the moment, right? And again, nothing's set in stone. And we have definitely helped homeowners connect with different builders and contractors who are building a home. We work with builders. I've had conversations with them as well. So again, that is not our bread and butter is new construction. However, we can assist sometimes, not all the time with it.
Okay. And does that include apartments, landlords, multifamily? I mean, I assume a building operator.
It gets complicated there, right? It is multifamily apartments, right? Different net metering and different meters on the house and what ties into that. So those projects get a little bit more complicated, that it takes a certain installer to pick those up. That again, we'll talk to installers. Again, it depends on the system size as well and what goes into it. But for multifamily, it's usually community solar is a better pathway than having solar. So again, situation case by case of what goes on with that.
And what about, integrative approach, those who maybe, want to do a full scale project, solar, electrification, heat pump. Is there an alignment or a collaboration that can occur between the heat pump installer and the solar installers through your network? I know some solar installers and some HVAC contractors are actively recognizing, hey, we need a partner. So when we come in and somebody wants this, we can bring them all together.
Yeah. So Mike, please feel free to chime in if you want to add anything after this. But what we are seeing is solar installers have roofers already in their network. And what they're starting to add is heat pump contractors in their network as well. And what EnergySage is trying to do and what the business development team is trying to do is very much build those bridges, build those connections. So if someone wanted to go solar and then wanted to go heat pumps, right? One, they push them back to EnergySage to connect them with heat pump contractors their way, but also they might know different heat pump contractors in their area because that's what homeowners are looking for. So a lot of Massachusetts solar installers have heat pump connections already to like pass back and forth to very much help a homeowner on their whole electrification journey.
A lot of times what we'll see too is solar installers are HVAC installers as well, and vice versa. So there are a number of installers that we work with across the country that do both. And so that makes it a little bit more of a seamless experience for the consumer that's initially looking to go solar, initially again, looking to get a heat pump, and then already have a relationship built up with that installer.
And, you know, to go a little bit deeper on that question, a great question here from one of our members here, and Will, is just return on investment for heat pumps and how that might align with if it's paired with solar. Do you see sort of like energy models being put together from the folks you're working with, sort of savvy assessments so people can really feel confident on their return on investment? Especially, you know, solar is kind of easy, right? But heat pumps are a little more tricky. I mean, are you seeing that out there?
Yeah, heat pumps are a lot more tricky. And it's very dependent on what your electricity costs are currently with your utility in the geographic region that you're in. The commonality across all geographies with heat pumps is the comfort factor. That's what you're paying for. And the comfort factor in the sense that your heat pump isn't going to be shutting down, then turning off and trying to ramp up where more energy is being utilized. It's going to have more of a steady state of keeping your home either more heated or cooled. The return on investments, for heat pumps is tricky, and it's not always going to be a return on investment depending on your geographic area.
Well, yeah, and to Mike's point, there's different rebates in different areas as well that some homeowners might qualify for and some homeowners might not qualify for, right? So there's all different intricacies that go into heat pump rebates and incentives that is a little bit more not a little bit, is more complex than solar incentives.
Yeah. A lot of great questions coming in. So when you have contractors who are offering storage, is it typically, you know, just your traditional battery storage, or what about people who maybe still want to get like an inverter that can, you know, keep what we call critical loads running during an outage without going full battery? So they can allow the refrigerator or the furnace to run, or, you know, methane gas backup generation. Are they offering that for people who are just, you know, nervous to go in a battery or all electric?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And most of our installers, again, I don't want to talk in absolutes here because that usually gets me in trouble, but most of our installers are very much prepped for that, but also manufacturers are coming out with inverters that are able to help with load management and go with the smart panel to be able to really minimize different loads and frequencies of what's happening there. So the equipment is getting better and making it easier to install for the installers, for more installers to offer it. So the technical piece is becoming simplified on the solar side, which has been really interesting to see that transition and how that's shaping the industry to really support installers to help homeowners with their specific needs, right? Because to your point, a lot of homeowners right now are like, storage is not the right fit for me right now, but I'll want it in the future. That they're setting up different inverters to then be able to set it up. So if someone wanted a battery 5 years down the road, they can easily set that up. But if someone wants a backup generator to do with load management, right, you're able to do that as well. So the technology has gotten a lot better to allow more and more installers to offer more niche ways of installation to accommodate different homeowners' needs.
What about, you know, what are you seeing out there for your installers for ongoing maintenance services? Are those things being offered more and more? And that can be anywhere from, you know, heat pump commissioning, recommissioning, right? Filter swaps, you know, making sure refrigerant is charged, making sure things are working. For solar, it could be cleaning the solar panels, you know, again, making sure they're functioning. Even I know my solar installer is offering a big discount if you have to take the solar off, put a regular roof back on, right? And then put the solar back on. So what are you seeing out there for this sort of ongoing maintenance opportunity?
So a couple things. One, a lot of our installers are offering 10-year or 25-year workmanship warranties that is backed by the manufacturer. So again, this comes down to quality, and what we were talking about earlier in the presentation is quality is not just about energy efficiencies and what's producing, but also quality of the manufacturer. That sometimes more expensive equipment is more expensive because of the warranties that manufacturer will provide. So what I mean by that is maybe the installer goes out of business 10 years from now, right? But the manufacturer is not going anywhere, right? And what they're able to do is then fulfill those warranties for the operation and maintenance side of things when the installer goes out of business. Not saying that they will, but there's always a possibility, right? There's a small local mom and pop shop that runs their installation business. They're not probably going to plan to be around for 25 years. There's a lot of unknown that the manufacturers are coming in with those warranties to be able to help those homeowners and give them peace of mind. However, right, there are more and more operations and maintenance companies popping up because that is a big need in the solar industry. As these big giant solar installers that are shutting down sometimes because they overpromised and underdelivered, right? That there is becoming a need for more and more operations and maintenance to take care of those homeowners. And EnergySage is able to help them to a certain extent, but not all the way.
Yeah. What opportunities for those either seeking assistance, or are you seeing for, how to pay for all this? I mean, this stuff is expensive, and, there are all sorts of mechanisms. There are green banks. I'm proud that Michigan Saves here in Michigan has one of the strongest green banks in the country. And they're coming online all over the place. There is our friends at Clean Energy Credit Union. I personally use the mortgage pathway. I just built it right into a construction loan, which even with high interest rates, I still recommend. And then, of course, the Inflation Reduction Act and all the local rebates and all that. So if somebody's searching, are they finding someone who understands all of these financial opportunities? What are you seeing out there? Are you surveying on that? How is that working out for you? Because again, a lot of people are like, this stuff is just too expensive. It's really hard to do.
Totally. We started offering our own financing product that partners with local credit unions that has a higher interest rate. However, right, there's lower upfront costs tied and associated with that. So as people are looking, comparing quotes and comparing proposals, is very much looking and saying, okay, the interest rate might be super high, it might be 7%. However, that upfront cost is a lot lower. So it's very much looking at that payback period that, one, if you have the upfront cash to pay for the system, do it. That is the best solution. That is still the best solution. That hasn't changed. However, right, with net metering policies, changes in California, we've seen an uptick in leases and PPAs where you now need storage with solar, which now from a 20K investment changed to a 50K investment that some people might not have the money for, right? So some people are still going with a lease or a PPA and not owning their system, right, to then do that. So there's different solutions to meet people's needs and what goes into it overall. But again, EnergySage very much positions themselves to help homeowners and business owners figure out what the right solution is for them based off of their needs and what they're willing to spend upfront versus over a period of time. And I also will say, I mean, when you buy a car and you finance it, right, you're not paying it off in the 25 years that you're taking out that loan. You're trying to pay it off as quick as possible. And the same thing happens. If you can pay it off as money.
And are you seeing anyone sort of hit that? It's always been the dream. We've been talking about it for a decade now, where your financing mechanism matches your savings and energy one for one, right? So if I'm paying $200 more in a monthly bill on average, that's never an average, right? But I'm saving on average across the year $200 in energy savings, and then it becomes a straight wash, and you're just what we call shifting the debt, right? because in theory, right, if you think about it, we're all in debt to our utility company, and it's a debt we will never pay off, right? We'll always be in debt for them indefinitely. So are you seeing people shift that debt over to a financing which builds equity and maybe matches one for one? I know it's so hard to find it, even with interest rates going up, but have you seen that happen?
Yeah, that's a difficult one to answer.
Yeah.
And it's Mike, if you want to chime in, if you have some answers there, feel free. But I don't have a lot to talk about on that one, Brett.
I missed that question. Sorry, Brett. I was responding to some other folks.
The question is that, in short, just are you seeing a wash? So if somebody's financing solar and or heat pumps or home energy, their savings equals their increased cost of paying off the debt. So that way, anyone who's maybe financially burdened or not rich and has no extra money to do this, it's just a one for one. I save 200 on my utility bill. Now I pay 200 into a loan.
Yeah, I don't have enough data on that
Yeah.
as well, and wouldn't want to lead anybody down the wrong path or misspeak. So
Yeah,
can definitely follow up on that.
I can, however, talk about how installers are talking about it.
Yeah, or what is the message? What is the conversation? I know it's hard.
So again, this goes back to the story with my barber, right, that I was telling earlier, right? But very much goes into, they pitched a finance product to him to go solar, and it was save $15 a month on your utility bill. Right. So for him to finance a project for 25 years, he would reduce his overall cost by $15. He was like, I don't electrify my home. I use oil, I use gas, I use propane. Like, I don't use the product, so I don't really need to do this because it's not going to affect my utility bill as much. But the way people are approaching it is saying, look, this is what you're paying right now, and this is the offset. And what people also don't realize is, to my example earlier with National Grid upping utility rates by like 62%, right? That's not a 2 to 3% increase is what we're typically seeing as industry average. Those rates are variable. They're going to change year over year, but also month over month of what's going into the space. So it's really hard to predict everything that's going to happen with the change in utility rates. What we can say is that those utility rates are going to increase. That right now, yeah, you might save $30 on your utility bill, but in years to come, you might save $100. So it's really prepping for what's going to happen in the future is how people are talking about it.
Mike, I know you had mentioned you were needing to go. We can still hang out, but I didn't want you to awkwardly have to stick on if you have to get going. So I wanted to thank you for your time if you got to get going. So
yeah, do have to drop, but this was awesome, Brett. Really enjoyed my time here and speaking to everybody, answering all these questions. A ton of good questions. I was trying to keep up with them all, but they just kept coming in. So hopefully I answered some of the questions for folks. And feel free to reach out to myself or Eric, I think, as well, in the days to come. Our email is our first last name at EnergySage.com. So you have that. And then as a reminder too, that home electrification contractor survey that I dropped in the chat a little bit earlier is open to any contractors that are on the call and would like to participate in the survey and giving us more information that will then be reported out on in a more formal and larger brief that will be sent out to the public.
Great. Yeah. Thank you so much, Mike. Eric, are you able to stick around for a little while, or?
I can stay around for probably like 5 or 6 more minutes. But to Mike's point too, we also are coming out with our Intel report. See, Mike, we're coming out with our Intel report in the next few weeks. Again, the data that I was showing, all of that, we get extremely granular with all of that data and what goes into that. So very much when that comes out, would recommend downloading it. We don't spam anyone. It is just for you and for your convenience. We come out with that twice a year. And then also whoever is in the renewable space that is going to RE Plus in Vegas in the next 2 or 3 weeks, we have a booth there. We'd be happy to meet. I will send a follow-up email with our RE Plus link, but also our meeting link, that if you just have any questions, we would love to answer them. We would love to continue these conversations, keep them going. Connect with Mike or myself on LinkedIn, send us an email, have a conversation. I will say, if you put a C in my name, I will not receive that email. It is K's only, Eric.Holvig, all K's at EnergySage, and won't get them if you put a C in there. So I warned you once, but feel free to shoot me an email, and I'd be happy to answer anything.
All right, that's Eric with a K, everybody. You got that one. Yeah, well, thanks for hanging out. I kind of wanted to just keep talking about some of these alternative approaches to making solar work. We talked about community solar, some of these financing, and some of these questions are coming in, and just seeing what you all are seeing out there. So one big approach that is occurring, I know, for example, very proud of one of our members, the city of Ann Arbor, Michigan, has been very good at this, is what we call the solar buy down programs. Are you seeing any of the folks you're working with? And I know these have to be hyper local programs, you know, sometimes down to the street level, but the idea being, hey, you get your neighbors to sign up within a certain, right, you know, street, community, neighborhood, city. Sometimes I've seen people offer going from, you know, 30-mile between 3 different cities. It just depends on everything. But the idea, hey, if you can get 5 or 10 people signed up and sign the contract, we'll come in and solarize those homes and we'll cut the cost for everybody. Are you seeing those kinds of things play out with the folks you're working with, or those conversations?
We see definitely installers do that. We don't do that on EnergySage per se. However, we are seeing installers starting to promote that more and more. Again, that's extremely niche and granular with what's going on. What EnergySage does, and I want to make sure that that this is understood, is you're getting a preliminary proposal from multiple installers that they're not going to know all of the details. You don't even have to put your utility bill in there if you don't want to. However, right, what it is doing is you're able to compare and see what a preliminary proposal looks like to then go forward on that front. So we see our installers do that. We're not seeing them do it as much on EnergySage.
Yeah, fair enough. What about geothermal, aka, as its real name in the conversation here, is ground source heat pump? I know air source heat pump technology has sort of stolen the show now at this point because of its cost. It's less invasive, but the 30% Inflation Reduction Act tax credit is back for geothermal. And our friends on the air source side do not get that. Solar and geothermal do get it. So what are you seeing out there? Do you have geothermal contractors if people want to take a look at that kind of technology, or what?
I will say geothermal is expensive. It is the most expensive out of all the ones that you just named. If you have the money to have geothermal, do it. It is extremely efficient. Highly recommend. It is expensive. We have contractors that are able to do it, that want to do it, but it gets to be more technical. You need more space. And the timing of it and the cost with it sometimes just don't always align. So,
right.
But we definitely have people who are able to do it.
Yeah. And what about water heating? Is that something people can come to find for heat pump water heaters, or is this strictly just air, or what are you seeing?
Yeah, so we're strictly doing air source heat pumps.
Okay.
That's what is. Again, it starts with the preliminary proposal, right? That if that switches to ground source and that contractor is able to accommodate that.
No, I'm sorry. Let me ask this a question again. Water heating, like heat pump water heaters only. If people are looking for that, is that something that they can quickly find? I know a lot of the HVAC who offer air source heat pumps also do water heating on the side. But is that something specific people can come to look for?
Not on EnergySage. We're not showing hot water heaters. But again, you can have a conversation, and our installers show that they offer it, but we're not explicitly offering it. We've written articles about it, educating people, so you can find written articles about it, but that's about it.
Yeah. All right, Eric. Well, I am going to let you go here because we are at our time. But I really want to thank you and Mike, and again, EnergySage, for spending some time with us, educating our audience. As just real quick, where can people go as a reminder to contact you all or learn more?
Yeah, so feel free to connect with Mike or myself on LinkedIn, send us an email. I'll also send out a follow-up email CCing Mike on there, so you have both of our email contacts, and then we can direct you in the right way of who you want to talk to at EnergySage. And if you're a contractor, I'd love to have a conversation with you. But also a homeowner, want to hear your perspective of what's going into the space before we connect you with an energy advisor. So I'll send a follow-up email within the next 24 hours. Please feel free to reach out. Happy to have a conversation. If you want to beat me to the punch, send an email before I get to it. And we can have those conversations. So I have a 24-hour policy. I'll respond within 24 hours. And I'm going to stop talking because I have talked way too much for this presentation. Very much want to thank you all again. And if you need anything, feel free to reach out. EnergySage would be happy to help.
All right, Eric, thank you so much. Take care, everyone. For those of you in the United States, have a great holiday weekend. We'll be back here in a week, so join us. Take care. Goodbye. Thank you.
Be sure to check out all of our courses available online that you can watch anytime and anywhere to pick up your CEUs. Before you go, make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube to get weekly updates and stay up to date on green building science courses, webinars, and home tours. Thanks again.